Have you ever truly wondered why a woman chooses to have sex with a man? Most men, conditioned by centuries of cultural simplification, believe the answer is simple: primal attraction, raw, uncomplicated desire. But the truth is a labyrinth, a psychological tapestry of such astonishing complexity that, if you don't understand its threads, you will be left perpetually confused, frustrated, and one step behind in your relationships. You will find yourself navigating the most intimate part of your life with a broken compass, mistaking north for south and wondering why you always end up lost. For decades, both science and popular culture viewed female desire through a simplistic and frankly, patriarchal lens. It was assumed to be a quiet, reactive force, a gentle current that responded only to a few obvious triggers like a man's overt advances, the biological need for procreation, or a vague, romanticized notion of love. Theories, from Freudian psychoanalysis that often painted female sexuality in terms of neurosis, to rigid evolutionary models that reduced it to a mere mechanism for securing a high-value mate, all missed the mark. They weren't just wrong, they were fundamentally incomplete. They studied the map without ever asking the inhabitants of the territory for directions. But then, a groundbreaking study led by clinical psychophysiologist Dr. Cindy Meston and evolutionary psychologist Dr. David Buss completely dismantled this outdated view. Their work didn't just theorize from an academic ivory tower, it went directly to the source. They conducted one of the most comprehensive investigations into human sexuality ever undertaken, systematically asking thousands of women one profound question: why do you have sex? The answers they received shattered every simplistic assumption, revealing an incredible 237 distinct reasons. I promise you this: by the end of this deep dive, you will not only understand the four major psychological pillars that these 237 reasons fall under, but you will also grasp the subtle interplay between them. This isn't guesswork or anecdotal advice from a dating guru, this is a roadmap to the female mind, grounded in rigorous, empirical science. Understanding this framework will stop you from wasting emotional energy on the wrong things, the grand gestures when what she needs is quiet presence, the focus on physical prowess when her mind is craving emotional safety. It will give you the power to build the kind of deep, passionate, and resilient connection you've always wanted. Let's begin. The first pillar, physical motivation. This is the one we all recognize, the pillar that forms the foundation of our most basic understanding of attraction, yet it is a realm we often only scratch the surface of. Physical motivation is the most straightforward and widely understood category, centered on the sensory and bodily aspects of intimacy. The motivation here is born from pure physical attraction, the simple and profound pursuit of pleasure, and sometimes, the undeniable thrill of a new experience. Think back to the first time you tried something that made your heart race, the adrenaline rush, the pure, exhilarating curiosity of the unknown. Women often feel that same powerful pull toward intimacy, a desire for novelty and adventure that falls under the subfactor of experience seeking. This isn't just about promiscuity, it's about a deep-seated human desire to explore one's own body, to understand the contours of one's own pleasure, and to feel the jolt of newness that keeps life from becoming monotonous. It's the drive that makes a new relationship exciting and a long-term one feel revitalized when a couple dares to try something different together. When a woman finds a man physically irresistible, his smile, the specific scent of his skin, his presence, or the quiet confidence in his eyes, that alone can be a powerful spark, a motivation the researchers termed physical desirability. But this is not merely a checklist of handsome features. It's a holistic assessment. It's the way a man moves with unforced confidence, the deep timbre of his voice, the way he holds eye contact without flinching. It is a subconscious evaluation of vitality and health, an ancient signal of genetic fitness that still resonates powerfully today. But here is a deeper layer that most men miss: a woman's physical motivation is not a constant, steady flame, it's a tide that ebbs and flows with her biology. Hormones, menstrual cycles, and natural fluctuations in libido create powerful waves of desire. Her body is a complex ecosystem, and her physical receptiveness can change dramatically from one week to the next. So, if you notice that your partner is far more physically affectionate at certain times than others, it's not random. It's not a reflection of her feelings for you wavering. It's nature. A wise man doesn't fight the tide or get offended by its retreat, he learns to understand its rhythm and navigate it with patience and awareness. Furthermore, another crucial subfactor within this pillar is stress reduction. Even in retirement, a man's life is filled with pressures, financial concerns, family matters, health challenges. His partner experiences these as well, often with an added layer of emotional labor. In our modern, overstimulated world, stress becomes a chronic state of being. Intimacy can serve as a potent biological mechanism for alleviating this tension. The release of oxytocin and endorphins during sex acts as a natural tranquilizer, calming the nervous system and fostering a sense of well-being. It's a way to feel grounded, to release anxiety, and to reconnect with the body in a world that is often overwhelmingly mental and abstract. A man might misinterpret his partner's desire for intimacy after a stressful week as being purely about him, when in reality, it is a deep-seated need to find a sanctuary from the chaos of life, a motivation he has the privilege to fulfill. It is an invitation not just to share pleasure, but to co-create a moment of peace. The second pillar, emotional motivation but physical attraction, however potent, is just the entry point. The second pillar is where things become far more interesting, and for many men, it's the missing piece of the puzzle. This is the world of emotional motivation, and it is the engine room of female desire in most long-term relationships. Many men operate under the assumption that if the physical attraction is there, sex should naturally and logically follow. But for a vast number of women, emotional motivation is an even more powerful, and often essential, precursor to physical desire. This domain is rooted in the deep human need for intimacy, connection, and the expression of profound feelings that words alone cannot capture. Women crave emotional closeness, that feeling of being truly seen, loved, valued, and deeply connected to their partner. For many, intimacy isn't just about the physical act of sex, it's about feeling secure in the fortress of a loving bond, a motivation researchers classify into the subfactor of love and commitment. Think of it this way: if a man often sees physical intimacy as the fire, for many women, emotional intimacy is the oxygen. Without it, the fire cannot burn for long, no matter how strong the initial spark. That is why a woman will often choose intimacy not just for the pleasure it brings, but as a way to strengthen and reaffirm her emotional bond. She wants to feel close. She wants the reassurance that you care, that you are present with her. She wants to experience not just your body, but your heart. This can even be a specific form of nonverbal communication, what the research calls expression, using sex to say thank you for a thoughtful gesture, I missed you after a long day apart, or we are okay after a disagreement. It becomes a language of its own, capable of conveying nuance and depth that spoken words often fail to reach. And here's the kicker that every man needs to understand: when a woman feels emotionally safe, genuinely desired for who she is as a whole person, and deeply respected, her physical motivation can skyrocket. Creating this emotional safety is not a passive state, it is an active process. It means listening without immediately trying to fix her problems. When she shares a struggle, her primary need is often not for a solution, but for a witness, someone to acknowledge the weight of her burden. It means validating her feelings even when you don't fully understand them, saying I can see why you would feel that way instead of you're overreacting. It's about demonstrating through your consistent, reliable presence that she can be vulnerable with you without fear of judgment, dismissal, or abandonment. This is why in so many long-term relationships, when the emotional connection fades, when conversation becomes purely functional, revolving around logistics and schedules, and vulnerability disappears, the bedroom often goes quiet, too. It's not that the attraction is gone. It's that the oxygen has been removed from the room, and the fire has been starved. The third pillar, relational motivation, goal attainment. This profound need for emotional connection leads directly to the third pillar, a motivation that is often more subconscious and strategic, and one that most men never even consider. This is relational motivation, or what the research framework formally calls goal attainment. This is where sex becomes more than an act of love or pleasure, it becomes a tool. It's a strategic and utilitarian dimension of sexuality, where intimacy is used as a means to an end. Now, this isn't necessarily a cold or cynical calculation. Often, it's about the preservation and strengthening of the relationship itself, a function vital to long-term partnership. Have you ever noticed how, after a heated argument, some couples make up in the bedroom? That is relational motivation at work. For some women, intimacy is the most direct path to restoring peace, a powerful nonverbal signal that the conflict is resolved and the union is once again secure. It serves to de-escalate tension and reaffirm the bond, maintaining stability and keeping the partnership strong. This pillar also includes motivations to secure resources or enhance social status, where sex is used to achieve practical outcomes. In our modern context, especially in a long-term partnership, resources rarely means a crass, transactional exchange of money for sex. It's a far more subtle, subconscious linkage. A partner's consistent contributions to the household, his reliability, his emotional support, these acts of service create a deep feeling of security and goodwill. This sense of being cared for and being part of a functional team makes her more open and receptive to intimacy. It's not a transaction, it's an ecosystem where one positive action nourishes another. However, on the darker side of this pillar is the motivation of revenge. The research uncovered that some women use sex as a weapon to get back at a partner for having cheated, for example, by seducing someone else. This reveals a primal and often hidden aspect of human psychology where the most intimate act can be co-opted for power dynamics and retaliation. It's a desperate attempt to reclaim a sense of agency and inflict a pain equivalent to the one received. Understanding this reminds us that the act of sex can carry an immense and sometimes destructive psychological weight, far beyond the physical. The fourth pillar, insecurity motivation. This brings us to our fourth and final pillar, a dimension of desire that reveals the more defensive, fragile, and complex side of human psychology, insecurity motivation. This factor uncovers the compensatory reasons for having sex. It includes motivations driven by a need to quiet negative feelings, such as low self-esteem, a sense of guilt or obligation, or the deep-seated fear of a partner's infidelity. These motivations are largely instrumental and preventative, using sex not to approach a positive state, like pleasure or intimacy, but to avoid a negative one, like conflict or abandonment. 3 key subfactors live here. Self-esteem boost. This is engaging in sex to feel more attractive, desirable, or powerful. When a woman is feeling insecure, perhaps due to the ego threats of aging, career challenges, or the changes to her body after childbirth, feeling desired by a partner can serve as a potent affirmation of her value. It's a way to feel better about herself, a temporary balm on the wound of self-doubt. The act says, "I'm still wanted. I am still desirable." Duty or pressure. This is one of the most damaging motivations, yet it is tragically common. This is having sex out of a sense of obligation, guilt, or in response to a partner's persistent insistence and emotional pressure. This is a critical distinction from acts of love, as it's motivated by the desire to avoid conflict, a partner's sulking, or their disappointment. It becomes a chore, an item on a to-do list to keep the peace. While it might prevent an argument in the short term, it is a corrosive force in a relationship, breeding resentment and extinguishing the last embers of genuine desire. Mate guarding. This is a concept straight from evolutionary psychology, a modern echo of an ancient survival instinct. It's using sex as a strategy to maintain a relationship and prevent a partner from straying. For millennia, retaining a valuable partner was critical for survival and the successful raising of offspring. Today, that instinct can surface as a feeling of insecurity that triggers a desire for intimacy. If she perceives a threat, a new attractive colleague at his office, or him mentioning an old flame, she might initiate sex as a way to reaffirm the bond, reclaim her territory, and ward off perceived rivals. This isn't a flaw in her character, it's a deeply ingrained protective mechanism. The Great Evolution, how motivations change with time. So, we have the 4 pillars: physical, emotional, goal attainment, and insecurity. But here's the twist that changes everything: these motivations are not static. They are not set in stone. They evolve dramatically over a woman's lifetime. If you don't understand how age, experience, and life circumstances change the game, you will completely misread the signals, trying to use a playbook from Chapter 1 when she is already living in Chapter 10. Here's where it gets truly fascinating. A woman's reasons for intimacy shift with the seasons of her life. Young women, 18 to 30, for younger women, particularly those aged 18 to 22, intimacy is often a grand exploration. It is a journey of curiosity. They are discovering themselves, their bodies, and the immense emotional power of attraction. This is the stage of experimentation, where they are chasing novelty, pleasure, and validation. Social pressure and the desire to gain experience, to not be left behind, can play a much larger role at this age. The motivations are often tilted heavily towards the physical and insecurity pillars, boosting self-esteem, feeling normal. Middle-aged women, 31 to 45, this is where intimacy becomes more layered and nuanced. For women in this stage, the motivational landscape becomes significantly more complex and diversified. While love and pleasure remain core drivers, they accumulate a wider array of secondary motivations. Research shows that women in this age group report a significantly higher likelihood of engaging in sex for reasons like stress reduction, experience seeking, reigniting a spark, boosting self-esteem, and even mate guarding, as the stakes of the relationship, family, shared assets, are higher. This motivational accumulation means that a woman in her late 30s or 40s is navigating a more intricate set of life circumstances, careers, children, financial pressures, aging parents, and her reasons for intimacy reflect that complexity. Sex is no longer just one thing, it must be many things at once: a source of pleasure, a tool for connection, a respite from stress, and a reaffirmation of her identity as a desirable woman. Older women, 46 and beyond, and then we reach the 46+ stage. For older women, sexual motivation doesn't disappear, it transforms. A pivotal shift occurs that can be described as the Great Decoupling. While biological changes associated with menopause are real, desire begins to decouple from purely hormonal drivers and becomes powered more intensely by psychosocial factors. Relationship satisfaction, a high level of emotional support from a partner, personal self-esteem, and a general sense of optimism emerge as the most critical drivers of a satisfying sex life. For many women, this period brings a sense of sexual liberation. With less worry about pregnancy and often a greater sense of self-acceptance, sex can be viewed less as a duty or a procreative act and more as a form of profound personal expression, deep pleasure, and cherished companionship. So, what does this all mean for you? It means that to truly connect with a woman, you have to look beyond the physical act and develop the wisdom to understand the motivation behind it. Is she seeking pleasure, physical, or is she seeking reassurance, emotional/insecurity? Is she expressing love, emotional, or is she trying to reduce the immense stress of her day, physical? Is she trying to feel close to you, emotional, or is she trying to make sure you stay close to her, insecurity/mate guarding? The research is clear: when intimacy is driven by approach goals like seeking pleasure, celebrating your love, or enhancing emotional connection, it leads to higher desire and greater satisfaction for both partners. The experience is fulfilling and bond strengthening. When it's driven by avoidance goals like preventing a fight, acting out of obligation, or quieting insecurity, it consistently leads to lower satisfaction, more conflict, and a gradual erosion of intimacy. Understanding this distinction can fundamentally transform your relationship. It allows you to shift from confusion to clarity, from frustration to empathy. You stop taking things personally. Her lack of interest is no longer an indictment of your attractiveness, but perhaps a sign of her exhaustion or a fraying emotional connection that needs tending. You start seeing the bigger picture. This knowledge is the key to strengthening long-term satisfaction, because as motivations shift with the seasons of life, you can adapt together, keeping intimacy alive and making it deeper and more meaningful than it ever was in the early days. Think about your own relationship right now. Have you ever misread her signals? Have you ever pushed for a physical connection when what she was truly craving was an emotional one? Before you go, I have a question for you. Of these 4 pillars of motivation, physical, emotional, goal-oriented, or insecurity, which one do you believe is most misunderstood by men today? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read every one, and your perspective helps our entire community grow wiser. If this deep dive into the psychology of attraction resonated with you, make sure you subscribe to Sovereign Psychology. Every week, we decode the hidden forces that shape our lives and give you the tools to build stronger, more honest relationships. And if you want to continue this journey of understanding, I highly recommend you explore our other videos, where we delve deeper into concepts like responsive desire and the foundations of long-term attraction. This has been another deep dive into the psychology of attraction and connection. Until next time, protect your heart, understand the game, and never stop growing.